All right. What makes the perfect target for military recruitment? Um, for this research paper, I'll be focusing on the idea of the perfect target for military recruitment depends upon several interlocking factors: demographics, the potential recruit themselves, personal values, and how those mesh with the recruiting standards of each branch of the military. I'm sorry, I said that weird. uh, and then primarily I'll throughout this research presentation, I'll be providing different target values, and then slightly analyzing each one and how they would contribute through the project. Um, and so by the end of it, I should have an idea of I will say approximately three um, values that are rated as higher level compared to the others. Actually, just introduced it. My apologies. All right. So my own experiences. The reason I joined the Army was actually because I was in college previously at University of Kentucky, and I wasn't doing so hot, did not do great studying, and so I decided I would choose an alternative path, and I chose to join the Army, primarily because I did have a good amount of student debt built up from the years I was in University of Kentucky. And so I wanted to at least pay that off, and I have pretty much a clean slate from then. Um, and so I joined, and when I was at the recruiters, I was hoping to go for something medical, specifically pharmacy, because I was a certified pharmacy technician then. Um, but then the recruiter uh, sorry, the recruiter suggested going for another job, which ended up being military intelligence, which would offer better values for the education for the loan repayment program. And that's why I joined originally. Now we're going to go through the history associated with military recruitment and how it really has been implemented and structured into education systems. So the No Child Left Behind Act was instituted by George W. Bush in 2001, post 9/11. And what this act does is it actually focuses primarily on education, but within this act, it has a single clause that talks about military recruitment being focused in educational institutions. So this is high schools primarily is what they're going towards, but that will include universities. And then universities actually have already been included primarily or previously in 1996 with the Sloan Act or Solomon Act. My apologies. But it's really being enforced in a different standard where the actual recruiters have access to demographic information that has to, by law, be given to the recruiters by the schools, so that they have a better idea of demographics they're working for or working towards targeting. All right, so the ASVAB, this actually fits in with the No Child Left Behind Act in the military clause, because this test is required to be taken by every high schooler at least one time. And so these scores help the recruiters identify what variables or what kind of sections they're strong at, the students themselves, and they have to pass a percentile. So the test itself is a percentile. And you can see the listed scores of percentiles associated with each branch, and just in general high school diploma scores and then GED scores. GEDs held to a different standard. And for the ASVAB, they are focusing on 9 specific areas, which are very they do cover a broad area, which pretty much is just for the job. It's helping them identify what jobs people would be good at, and that would actually be used also for targeting. the students, whether it be high school or college, but primarily high school. All right, so racial minorities, I don't have any or not much information on the Asian population, but I do have a good amount on African American and Hispanic. So at least from the time frame from 2000 to 2005, African Americans saw an increase until after 2005, where it's been slowly declining in the population of recruitments, just based upon politics associated with the military and alternative jobs or lack thereof. Whereas the Hispanic population has, since 2000, it had a big increase since from 2000 to 2005, and has slowly seen a steady incline within the military. And then I will be finding more numbers on this exactly. Actually, it's right here. My apologies. So from 2000 to 2005, there was an 8.3% drop from or past 2005 from the Iraq War on African American enlistment. All right, and then for females, so females are obviously not necessarily, they are the minority within the military. It is a very male dominated job or career, but what's seen from the data is that females do tend to stay in the military long, or for the full 20 years. They find that even from a racial minority standpoint, that they encounter much less racial discrimination than a normal civilian job, because in the military, if there is any racial discrimination, not only do your other soldiers or the other soldiers held them accountable, the upper leadership will correct that issue with physical training. And with that, there is still gender discrimination as expected. Military is very it's a rough place, and so there is gender discrimination. But also for my friend who's actually in the photos, and she joined the military for furthering her career. Well, she wanted to become a surgeon, and so she thought, why not do a cool job? So she chose combat medic in medical field, and through the military, she's actually going to get, or she's hoping to get her medical school paid for, while still technically being an active duty soldier. And at that point, she will, after the end of her education, still owe a few years to the military, but after that, she'll have her education, and the military would pay for it as long as she came back and worked for the military again for that time period. All right, so masculinity, I would define this one as the primary target for all of recruiting. So masculinity will be focusing on the doing very dangerous, scary things that are tough. You're gonna get dirty, you're gonna get hurt, but it's the cool, manly thing to do. And a lot of advertisements within the military are focused on that. As you can see here, there's literally people shooting artillery. Well, they're not actively shooting it, but they're about to. And then people parachuting in. Like, those just sound more dangerous environments, which sounds pretty cool to most males. And then we'll focus more on this as I talk more about the branch-specific advertisement. So educational benefits. This is why, obviously, I said I joined, and why my buddy Zen joined as well. So educational benefits, not only is it socially, or like, not only is it just the GI Bill, there's two GI Bills. There's the Montgomery GI Bill and then the post 9/11 GI Bill. And those can both be used at different times, and both be used by your spouse and your children. And these provide, no matter what, you get in-state tuition, and then you get a certain amount of money paid for your education, your books as well, and then also your housing. So it's a big incentive, and a lot of soldiers go in the military. If they're going reserves or National Guard, they'll still be able to access these GI benefits and then utilize them while they're still finishing their degree and finishing their contract with the U.S. military. Yeah, with the U.S. military. Okay, so the branch differences for advertisements. So many of the more obvious differences are based upon the branch. So Space Force, I can't really say anything for yet because it's not quite as established. It's still technically underneath the Air Force for the time being until they get a centralized or a more centralized group. But for the Air Force, they are actually different from nearly every other one in that a lot of the Air Force advertisements are focused on being the smartest or gaining a skill in something that you would never be able to do really in civilian world, realistically at least. And then Marines are focused, as seen in many commercials, as being the first one in, last one out. You are going in, kicking through doors, and for the most part, that's almost entirely always the case. Navy is always seen as more, or not always seen, my apologies. Navy is the information and advertisements are more focused on masculinity and that associated with traveling. You're going to see the world while you're doing cool things like shooting and stuff like that on a boat. Not always on a boat. They can easily be on land. But it's a lot more focused on the boats for advertisement. And then U.S. Army, a lot different in that it focuses a lot on the boom, boom, kicking in doors, but it also has a lot more supporting roles in the advertisements. A lot of them are you're showing mechanics working on vehicles or generators, and it's how you can support the military war effort. All right, and then in conclusion, so for overall, I would say that masculinity is the top target value for every branch, just in a different degree and different value way. Second, being education. So many of the possible recruits are looking for a way to pay for college, which is already expensive enough, and to maybe get a paycheck along with it. And then the third, although not many points on it, is alternatives to working. If they don't want to work to get an education, they can choose an alternative, which could be either working in the military or finding some other job, their skill to train in, or they a lot of times will choose between, if they feel like they're in a dead end job, they'll instead be focusing on trying to get out of that dead end job, and an alternative would be the military. All right, and that's the presentation. Any questions? No, I can present well. And then sources page 1, and then sources page 2. All right, thank you.